most common questions that I receive from colleagues, friends, family, individuals that I know in mentoring contexts is about how I balance work and life. That's why in this video I'd like to talk about how I've come to realise that I don't play tug of war with my professional and personal life, but instead prioritise the goal of integration. My name is Shivani Sharma and I am a professor and manager in higher education in the UK. I'd like to talk today about why I advocate for the shift from work-life balance to the concept of work-life integration. Specifically, I hope to motivate you based on my own lived experience to seek that sweet spot of coexistence between your personal and professional pursuits. That's the really important point. I am speaking from a perspective of lived experience and observation, and not, as you may expect from an academic, from a highly theoretical context. So, as I mentioned, people often comment that looking on my activities from the outside in, they can't imagine a day in the life of me. They assume that I have mastered the art of balance. And what does balance really mean in this context? Well, to many it's about being guilt-free, that you haven't dropped the ball or neglected something in any aspect of your life. You don't appear to be overloaded or pressured, and somehow you're seamlessly managing everything. Like most people, I of course want to excel professionally and be present personally, especially because I have quite young children. But there are also dimensions of my life where I want to still explore, such as, for example, performing arts. I'm an avid fan of Kathak and training semi-classically. I've also recently become a fitness enthusiast. As part of Indian culture, I really very much value the concept of seva, and I'm often looking for, that means opportunities to contribute to, in a voluntary capacity, my local community. And this all demands disciplined attention, but that doesn't sit in neat little boxes that you can dip in and out of, specifically between your 9-to-5 life or afterwards. So the consistency of this question, though I just wake up and get on with my everyday life, has really made me think about what it is that is helping me to flow between different spheres of life. And I realise that rather than this traditional notion of balance, for me, in my mindset, that's been outdated and overtaken by the concept of integration, which, having carefully examined my everyday activity and my mindset, I feel is very much driven by two particular things. The first is purpose. I use this word here to connect what I want to achieve and what drives my everyday behaviour, actions, decision making, to seeking alignment between all these things as opposed to hard lines. So my purpose very much centres around contribution to others. In my day-to-day life, whether that's in my work context or socially, I thrive on and am very much motivated by my work making a difference, small or large, to someone else's well-being and their life. So, to give you an example of integrating these two different things, aligning purpose from my professional and personal life within an everyday context, I recently decided to consciously take up the walking meeting. Why? Because as part of my fitness journey, I needed to have more time for movement, and I was struggling with a long commute after work, to coming back to young children, sorting out their evening routine, to find that time. And that would have added that sense of achievement, well-being for myself. But then at the same time, I had this opportunity to think about restructuring my work day. So I took up the walking meeting because that allowed me not only to achieve my personal well-being goal, but also enabled me to continue to connect with a colleague that was really important to me, so that we could together continue to achieve a particular goal that we were working on. So, especially with the flexibility and the autonomy offered in modern day workplaces, Consciously mixing personal and professional aims with this kind of synergy has been so helpful to me, importantly, not making me compromise outcomes in any domain. Of course, it may not work for everything, but there will, I think, at least be one thing in your everyday life which allows you to bring this harmony of blending your different objectives from personal and professional together, as opposed to trying to put these boundaries around them. As I explained, doing that didn't work for me. Day in, day out, I would still not hit my daily movement objectives. So that has been a game changer in that respect. The second thing I'd like to draw attention to is the use of micro minutes, especially with technology. Although I do have my own boundaries around downtime and having a digital detox in the evenings, I often find myself using the odd 60 seconds to a few minutes to achieve smaller objectives between different tasks. Now, this is not about cramming in as much as you can to your everyday work as you possibly could, or your everyday activities. It's really about making conscious choices about how you are going to use time meaningfully, as opposed to squeezing out from it everything that you possibly could. So, to give you some examples of micro minutes, I am someone who loves to want to read novels, books, etc. However, I very rarely manage to find time for this. So to consciously integrate this into my day, I might, for example, often start my work day before I get going by just reading one page of a book. Equally, between meetings, if I've got a few minutes, I might take the opportunity to connect socially with someone, or perhaps if I'm doing something in my voluntary work, to connect with someone in relation to that. Or my ultimate well-being uplift favourite is having a nice hot cup of tea, which often doesn't happen with children around in the equation. So that for me creates that micro wellness moment in the workplace, again using a few minutes with some conscious effort. So these goals are simple, effective, but because I am constantly moving mentally and physically between the many things that I want from my life, these dimensions become integrated and not segregated. So this approach of work-life integration versus work-life balance may not work for everyone. For some people, hard lines are very important. However, if you are connecting with the content that I'm sharing, you're someone who, like me, wants to experience and contribute a lot, I invite you to think about whether, rather than the ideology of work-life balance, you might invite the concept or entertain the concept of natural ebbs and flows, and to navigate your life as one integrated system, choosing to channel your energy and your purpose in harmony, professionally and personally. You might not always get it right, and you'll start with a lot of conscious effort, but over time, you may find that integration becomes a useful habit. It's not about doing more, it's about finding your motivation through purpose and choosing how you live your day-to-day life with meaning. So, if you had to sit and redesign your day, I'd invite you to start by thinking of just one micro opportunity you have to integrate a work and a life goal together and to give it a go.